Hello, good morning everyone. I'm Sujan. Thank you very much for joining us today for a discussion on Microsoft Zero Trust Security. This is the first in a series of webinars that we will be hosting over the next few weeks. So make sure you sign up for all of those to get a total understanding of the concept of Microsoft Zero Trust Security. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the first webinar. And I will be joined by speakers who are experts in the cybersecurity field with various years of experience. This includes our very own Udesh from ZILLIONe, Kiran from Microsoft APAC, and Manoj from Microsoft Sri Lanka. But before I pass it on to Manoj for the first session, I'd like to give a short introduction to ZILLIONe for those of you we haven't had the pleasure of working with yet. We have been in the Sri Lankan IT industry for over 40 years and have a diverse portfolio of solutions. However, security solutions have been a forte for us in the enterprise segment over the last decade. We were also the first Microsoft Gold and FastTrack Ready partner in the country. And with the emergence of Microsoft as a major player in the cybersecurity space, we are excited to be able to showcase the concept of Zero Trust Security by Microsoft for you today. So without further delay, let me hand it over to Manoj. Thank you, and I hope you will find these sessions informative.
Thank you, Sujan. Thank you very much. I warmly welcome all of you for this Zero Trust Security webinar. So let me share my screen. Right. So today our responsibility is to give you an understanding about Zero Trust Security. Before I go into details, I would like to set a context for today's discussion. So as we all know, we are in a global pandemic. So many countries have been moved to lockdown, and as well as few of the countries have been able to move out from that. And we see that due to the second wave coming up, there are few countries are coming back towards the lockdown situation. But the bottom line of this particular situation is that remote working. We have seen many companies, many organizations are now thinking of remote working, and they are encouraging their employees and users to use devices which is their personal. It could be desktop, it could be laptop, it could be their mobile devices. So basically there are lots of devices that is coming which is outside from their organization. The second thing that I would like to highlight is that the number of applications, the cloud applications that they use. So to enable remote working, of course, there are certain tools that Microsoft also is providing. And apart from that, to carry out their day-to-day activities, they are using, employees are using, users are using a lot of cloud applications. All of these reasons, all of these, I would say, the trends creates a lot of risk in terms of the cyber security. Because of that, we have seen massive number of cyber attacks, the breaches happening after the pandemic during this lockdown period. Because of that, the top of the mind concern for board of directors, decision makers, CEOs, or security officers is the security, because there are lots of information which belongs to your organization, which needs to be protected. And also you need to protect your identities, your users, because if you don't secure or safeguard those aspects, there could be a situation that there could be a breach scenario, so that the company needs to sometimes they have to go through devastating consequences. You will lose your credibility towards the customers. So in that case, security is one of the key top of the mind concern for all the decision makers across the world in business entities or education institutes. So I'll give you a small understanding and a few insights why security is a common theme for all the companies, all the institutes. As humankind, we have been fighting for so many things. We have been fighting for gold, land, oil. Now the war is on data. The indicates that 90% of the world's data has been created within last few years, actually last couple of years. So as a company, you need to protect your customers' information, which is very sensitive. Sometimes you may have to protect certain transaction details, employee details. If you don't protect those information from the attacks, then your good name will be tarnished. So it is your responsibility to secure your information. And also, when it comes to the hacking and breaches, the studies have shown that 81% of these hacking breaches happening due to stolen and weak password. What is this weak passwords are? If I ask you what is the common password in the world, most of the time password at 123 or pass at 123 is the common password in the world. Or it could be the default password which your IT team is given it to you. So these sort of password can be easily guessed by the bad actors or the hackers out there. So you need to make sure that your passwords, users, identities are protected. And the very next insight that I'm going to show you is the on cloud application. So as I told you before, there are lots of cloud applications being used. We have identified that 61% of those cloud applications have the shadow IT. What's the big deal of shadow IT? If you have shadow IT, the bad actors or the hackers would be easily get into your organization. It will be a risk for your organization in terms of cyber security. So you need to protect that as well with the proper solutions in terms of security. And also, if you want to give a full-fledged end-to-end security posture for your organization, you need to deploy approximately about 50 to 70 security products, and you may have to work with 20 to 35 vendors, security vendors, to fulfill this security need. Just imagine managing one or two vendors. How easy is that? I don't have to tell you about that. So imagine if you have 20 to 25 vendors with 50 security products and which are not integrated. If something goes wrong in your organization in terms of cyber security or breach, most of the time they will point out each other and say that is the other party's responsibility, not there. So in that case, you may have to deploy your resources, your expertise to find out where it has gone wrong, and it is you're wasting your own money as well as your resources. So with all of these consideration and concerns, all of the chief risk officers, CEOs, board of directors thinks that cybersecurity is one of the key things they need to think of or top of the mind things that they need to work on during this pandemic or the difficult time. So let's see what we will be able to bring it to your table with Zero Trust Security framework. Many people think that if you have a firewall in place in your organization, whatever happens behind that firewall is safe. But with the current setup, since you're promoting remote working, that is not the case. And also users are using a lot of cloud applications. Your users are exposed to outer world. In that case, you need to have more than firewall in your organization if you are thinking of security. So under zero trust security, what we offer is, or what we are coming up with, we don't trust anyone, any transaction, any action happening inside your organization or related to your organization. So we make sure that all the activities, all the users, all the transactions being verified and authenticated. That is what we call zero trust security. So to have a deep view or deep dive of zero trust, I would invite Kiran, who is one of the senior cloud solution architect at Microsoft, to talk about a little bit more on zero trust security in Microsoft lens. Kiran, over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Manoj. That was a very short, sweet introduction on zero trust. Let me quickly share my screen and then I'll put up my slides. Okay, just confirm me once you can see it, Manoj.
Right.
Can you see it?
We can see. Yeah, we can.
Awesome. So hello everyone. So as Manoj said, I'm a senior cloud solution architect. My name is Kiran. I'm based out of Singapore, and I do have a small blog called kirannr.com. So if any of you are interested to know more about Microsoft cybersecurity solutions, you can actually find some good information out there. So for today's session, right, like the concept is zero trust, which is not exactly a solution. It's basically a framework. It's basically a concept for you to really protect, secure your own environment. And today Microsoft has an end-to-end zero trust solutions or capability, and that is exactly why we are here today to talk about. So later part, once I'm done with my session, we have ZILLIONe, Udesh is coming in to showcase some fantastic demo on zero trust as well. So keep tuned to it. Let's begin with my session. And so we all know we are fighting against so many risk attacks inside our organizations, right? We have seen in the past that data exfiltration, the attackers hacks or targets you as an organization is because they want your data, which can be an intellectual property, which can be sensitive in nature, confidential in nature. They really want your data, and that's one of the reasons they do a targeted attack. They attack your organization to do a data exfiltration, and they have many ways to do it. They can actually send a phishing email, and you click on those phishing email, maybe a link or an attachment, and that mail has some malicious content in it. It downloads a remote control malware or some kind of applications which can actually take complete control on your device, and then they can actually start moving around inside your network. They can actually come through even with the compromised credentials. As we all know, password related attacks are quite often now. Let me tell you this. Password is the single weakest link in any company's IT security strategy, because most of the times everything is tied to the username and password, and it is a single weakest link. If your employees lose the password to a bad guys, it's easy for them to access your resources, your applications, your data, right? So you need to ensure that how do you protect the passwords in future, especially in today's scenarios where everybody is working from home. We have challenges. We don't have the visibility, who is logging in, what time, what day, from which device, and what is he doing when he's remotely connected to your corporate environment or an application, right? Now, if the passwords are not protected, it's very easy for them to get compromised. And once it is compromised, the data is also compromised. And we also seen attacks are happening with USB sticks. So somebody puts a malicious file on a USB stick, and the user is not aware of it. He comes in and then he plugs in to your corporate device, and once he plugs in, boom, that's it, right? So the device gets compromised, and if the same device comes inside the network, the hackers have access to your network, and then they start moving laterally from one machine to another machine, compromising more and more devices. Now, as we spoke, right, COVID, we are all going through this pandemic situation. What did it do for us? What is the kind of impact it created, especially for organizations, right? One, it definitely made every single customer, every single organization to move into a remote workforce, right? So it became a really challenge for a lot of organizations who were not ready for it, but their employees cannot get inside the office. They have to work remotely, but they don't have the right technologies in place, built in, right? So we had a lot of these challenges and impacts. So definitely it moved a lot of organizations to transitions to remote work. We call it as, now it's not just enabling a remote work. You have to enable them with a security. I mean, it has to be a secure remote work, right? Excuse me. And we also seen that these COVID, there are a lot of COVID themes based attacks, cyber attacks, right? There are emails coming in, looks very genuine, and it tells in an email that, okay, they are selling, COVID related things like maybe a sanitizer, or maybe a face mask, with a very discounted price. So you end up like, clicking on it, and then it takes you to a malicious website, and then something gets downloaded, or your device gets compromised, right? And we have also seen that some emails are telling like they are from World Health Organization, and there are a lot of COVID related information. You can find it over there, particularly related to your area or your country. So users are, keen to know what it is. So they click on those such emails, they open the attachments, and then they get it compromised. So these are some of the themes, we have seen. And since Jan or Feb, we have seen the COVID related phishing attacks have actually increased over 600%. That's like huge increase, right? Huge amount of attacks which are happening on customers, on users, the environment. So this is really worrisome. So we need to definitely look into it. We need to educate our employees, our users, telling what kind of emails they should open, and if they have any kind of suspect, then they shouldn't even open it. They just need to blindly delete. And we need to bring those awareness for your employees, right? And we've also seen that almost all companies, 90% of the companies, they want to go towards the cloud, because now cloud, when you have cloud-based solution, automatically it will help your employees to become remote workforce. It's not a big challenge, because they can actually access it from anywhere, from any device, as long as they have the rights, and they can authorize the applications. It's very easy for your employees to work. So now people have realized more, in fact, in this last 6 to 8 months, that cloud is the way to go forward. Cloud is the one which can actually help sustain their business. They can actually continue to work, whether it is pandemic or not. It actually helps improve the organization's performance, users, employees' productivity as well. So almost 95% now CIOs or organizations are actually adopting cloud-based solutions. And we have also seen that one of the biggest impact is now, because everybody started working remotely, and if they are accessing your on-premises environment, then VPN scalability becomes a big issue. Right now, VPN's performance goes down. They need to connect to a VPN, and then the VPN gets connected to your network, and then they get inside your on-premises environment. So the VPN scalability becomes a big issue, a lot of challenges through connectivity and all those. So COVID has actually created big impacts for many organizations. Now, what we see here is, how do you manage these risks effectively, right? We understand that moving to new way of working can actually open up to new vulnerabilities, right? New risks. So Microsoft completely understands that, and we actually wants to help you transition your company and then reduce your risk through the zero trust model, which we will talk more in detail, right? And we also wants to help you, so help in your digital transformation. We want to help you move securely to your digital transformation initiatives, right? So Microsoft has a lot of solutions on helping you to move successfully, and helping you to enable a secure remote workforce. So your employees can actually access your applications, whether it is on premises or on the cloud, securely anytime, regardless of any device and network they are actually coming in from. So we all know about this particular scenario, right? This is a traditional way where everything was inside the network perimeter, and network security was all that we needed at that time. So this is a story of like maybe 20 25 years ago, but if you look at the today's scenario, right, internet has actually changed everything. It actually enabled us to really transform how we did things in the past. We know that now our employees span across partners, customers. So you might be interacting with your own customers, right? And partners you have, and all these people bring their own devices. You will be storing very sensitive data in your cloud applications. You know, and all these things are actually connected, interconnected, right? So you will have employees connecting to your SaaS applications, you have your customers or your partners connecting to your SaaS applications, and we don't know what kind of devices they use. Is it really managed effectively or not, right? And we have seen users share the devices, applications, data within your partners and vendors as well. So what happens here is like this is a kind of today's model, and there is no network perimeter here because it's scattered across everywhere. Everybody is coming through internet, so there is absolutely no network perimeter which is relevant, because now you have cloud applications, your SaaS applications, your on-premises applications, and then everybody needs access to this. So what happens is you have to move away from your network perimeter and then look into an identity-based perimeter, because now for all these partners, customers, vendors, the only way they can access your resources, your application is through a username and password, and we call this as an identity, right? Now you need a way where you need to create that identity-based perimeter in order to complement your network perimeter as well. Now this slide is basically talks about identity modernization. Basically it tells what does a CEO of an organization or a CIO or a CISO is looking for. Right now, if you talk about a CEO of an organization, he is least bothered about how well or how your entire network is set up. For him, what is important is how can they seamlessly interact with their businesses, with their customers, with their partners, right? That's all CEO is worried about. He wants the business to be seamlessly accessible, workable. Now, when it comes to CIO, he wants to make sure, again, he wants to be more agile. He wants to provide a best secure end user experience, at the same time bringing down the cost of IT operations, right? Now, this is what CIO is looking at. And now what is a CISO is looking at? CISO's job is to protect the organization's network environment, right? So what is zero trust means for his business, for his organization, for his employees, right? For his environment. So that is what CISO is worried about. So if you look at it, there are within the same organizations, you have many different ways people think about the business, about end user experience, about bringing down the cost, and it's also about protecting your environment. And there are a lot of new strategies are laying out where now CIOs are planning to move onto the cloud. So if they are moving onto the cloud, it's like new risk, new solutions will come in. So they need to know how to manage the a hybrid cloud environment. They need to know what should be their strategy, right? So that is where we come in, and then we say the first strategy for you when you're actually moving onto the cloud or a hybrid environment is identity strategy. So you need to have a very, very strong holistic identity and access management solutions, which can actually help modernize your business, modernize the way you work, and at the same time protecting or securing your identity environment, whether they are on premises or on cloud, doesn't matter. Now, this is what the identity we are talking about, right? So, as I mentioned, network is no longer the perimeter, but identity is. Now, if you look at identity, is more than a user or account, right? So we actually see, like, identity means it's a user, it's basically a account, but it's actually not. Let me just give you some examples where using the identity, we can actually identify a lot of attributes on the device. Okay. For example, we can actually tell whether a user is connecting using a Windows device or a MacBook or an iOS or a Android device. Okay, because identity can actually has got the capability to tell how the users are actually using the device, what devices are they using, right? We can also tell if the device is compliant or not, or does it have all the configurations in it, or is it been jailbroken, or is it been rooted, right? We can also tell if the device shows any kind of indication of compromise. We can also detect a lot of attributes using the identity, especially when it comes to the application which you would have given for your employees to use, right? So we can also detect whether, what kind of application are they using? Is it a web server, or is it a SQL server? Is it an on-premises application, or is it a cloud-based applications like Office 365 or Salesforce, Box, ServiceNow, or something like that? And using the identity, we can also get some attributes towards the data, such as what kind of data are they accessing it? Is it sensitive in nature? Is it classified, or is it labeled, right? Is it internal, external? So we can get these kind of attributes using the identity also, right? Now, because of these capabilities and modernization and the integration, right? So you need to have an integration so that you can use one single identity to access all your applications, whether your own on-premises applications, cloud applications, or you're accessing someone from your partners or customers organization, right? So Microsoft's Zero Trust can actually help you, verify your identities, your devices, your applications, your data, your network, and as well as the infrastructure. Okay, so let's get into more details and then see what this Zero Trust is all about. Now, the zero trust, when we say zero trust, as Manoj was talking about, we have three main elements, principles to it. But what zero trust basically helps you is, like, it helps you, it is basically a risk-based security. Okay, so we focus, zero trust basically focuses on protecting your organization's resources, okay, not just the network segment. So we help you protect your resources in terms of users, devices, network, data, and so on. And when we talk about zero trust, we assume there is no implicit trust granted to all the assets which your users are using. Okay, it is solely based on verification. We don't trust anyone. We actually verify every single connection, every single user device who is coming and accessing your organization's resources. Now, this is where Manoj was talked about, right? So we have zero trust principles, and when we talk about zero trust principles, it is verify explicitly. That means we don't trust anyone. We verify each and every connection, devices which are actually coming and accessing in your environment, in your corporate network. We want to assume that all the requests which are actually originate from unapproved locations, uncontrolled networks. We want to basically authenticate and authorize based on the data points, including the identity, location, device health, the service workload, classification, anomalies. There are a lot of things which actually comes in. So we basically verify each and everything, and then we will allow access or we deny access. Okay, and the other principle of zero trust is also about, using the least privileged access. So why would somebody needs an admin access all the time, right? It can be risky. I mean, what if that admin account gets compromised? And hacker will also have admin privileges, right? So zero trust is all about, okay, just in time access. Okay, only give access, a privileged access or an admin access only when he needs it, and when he don't need it, automatically you should have a least privileged access towards your corporate the resources, right? So that's what zero trust is talking about. And then we also talk about the assume breach. When we say assume breach, today's scenario is there are only two possibilities. One, you should assume that you already breached, okay, or you will be breached very, very soon. These are the only two possibilities. So you as a CISO or a CIO or a security team, you have to have a mindset of assume breach. Okay, you should expect that somebody will breach your environment, and when you have that kind of a mindset, then now you create a strategy, or you come out with solutions which can actually prevent those attacks, right? So that is where zero trust is coming in. So zero trust, when you have a zero trust implemented in your organization, you would automatically verify each and every user, every device, applications coming in. You will ensure the unnecessarily the admin privileges or powers are not given to the users. Okay, only provided when they need it. And then with the assume breach mindset, you ensure your organization is protected really, really well. Now, these are the digital estates of any organizations, right? So identity, it's very, very important. You need to have a strong authentication for all your identities, and you have to ensure they are protected with MFA, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, and conditional access, and all those. When it comes to device, you should allow only devices which are trusted in your environment, which are compliant, which are also not risk in nature. What if a device is detected with a threat, a Trojan virus or a malicious mark, is detected on the device? Then would you want to allow those devices accessing your network? It's a big question mark, right? Now, uh, in reality, you shouldn't. If a device is identified as risky, you should isolate it immediately. And for isolating it, you need to have that visibility in the first place that yes, these devices are identified as riskier in my network. Now I need to stop them accessing or even access, connecting to my corporate Wi-Fi or a corporate network, right? Even if they are connected, the machine has to be isolated. That is when you can limit the risk, limit the threat inside your organization. And from the applications perspective, you have to ensure the right applications are provided for the right users, and they are all visible. You have a high visibility of who is accessing, from what device they are accessing, what date and time, from which location. So you need to have those devices so that you can help them secure. Infrastructure, definitely you need to harden your entire infrastructure, and you should be in a position where if there is a breach happened, you should be able to detect, and you should be able to respond in real time. Okay, so if there is an hacker connecting your network, your devices back to hackers command and control center, you should detect those kind of threats. Otherwise, the data exfiltration can happen quite quickly, right? So you need to have a strong solutions in place inside your infrastructure to detect and respond the threats in real time. Network, again, we are now moving away from your traditional network perimeter, right? So you need to move beyond your network, traditional network security approaches. You have to think more from the today's scenario where everybody is working remotely, right? So there is no network perimeter as such. So how do you ensure you bring the balance between security and productivity? How can your employees securely connect to your organization's network? So you need to think beyond these and then come out with latest modern solutions in order to meet your organization's requirement, at the same time protect them. Then data, of course. So data is the most important resource for any organization. Right now, there are many kinds of data, right? The data can be like, generic in nature, which can be shared across your customers, partners, users, inside, outside organizations. There are some data which are sensitive in nature, which are confidential in nature, right? There are data which are like, related to a particular project, particular scenario, right? Only senior management should have some sort of data access, right? So the data looks very common, but there are many different in nature. You need to have the visibility of what this data is. You need to classify it, you need to label it, and then you need to tell users if it is sensitive in nature, and if they are sending these kind of data outside your customers, for your partners, then what kind of security they need to enforce, right? So you need to think about all this stuff, and that is where zero trust comes in. And then the zero trust from Microsoft is actually helps you have a very strong identity and access management solutions. You can go passwordless, you can protect, you don't need to use a password to log into your machine or to log into your applications. You can use Microsoft's Windows Hello kind of a technology, wherein you can eliminate passwords. I mean, it becomes passwordless kind of an environment. So if there are no passwords where your users are using, there is no question of getting it compromised, because for an hacker to log into your environment remotely, he needs a username and password. But if there are no passwords for you, then how can you log in, right? So immediately you can improve your organization security posture. So likewise, we have solutions for devices, for applications, for infrastructure, for data, for network, and everything. Now, this is some scenarios which I created for you to give how you can move from implicit trust to zero trust. Now, what does implicit trust say, right? I mean, usually this is how it is. You will actually, the implicit trust in today's organizations, where like, they check what is the IP, where is this IP is coming from? Oh, it is coming from my internal network, so that means it is genuine, right? And they check all this with a static policy. Okay, it's coming, the IP is known, it is coming internally from within my network. Okay, so the policy says, okay, allowed. Then they have a level of access permitted. Either they have full access, or if it is something suspicious here, then it is no access, something like that. But the policy is static. It will only check these two parameters, or at the max, it can actually check whether they are compliant or not. But what zero trust does is, we actually check the context from the identity, from device, from applications, from network, from infrastructure and data. And here we know we have a dynamic policies which actually continuously monitors. We have a machine learning capability, so it learns about the users. It learns about whether do I know this identity tagged to this particular device, and this device usually access only these applications like Office 365, Salesforce and Box. They don't access any other application, and they usually come from this particular network, my corporate network, as well as from maybe from Sri Lanka as a network or a location, right? And this is the kind of data they access it. So do I know about it? Do I trust them? Okay, only if I know them, only if I trust them, then the access will be allowed. And the level of access is like, if it is anything suspicious, we will help you remediate it. We will stop them from accessing. So there is no access. We can help increase the assurance. We can limit access, or we can provide full access. Now let's look into the scenarios where it talks about from the identity perspective. So what is the context we look at from the identity, right? Now, how risky is the user's activity, right? So we look at, okay, what is this user called Udesh, for example? What is he trying to do? He's trying to access using Udesh as an identity. And then is he performing any kind of risky behavior? Okay. Is this user's password is available in the dark web? Microsoft does this. I mean, we go and buy username and passwords from dark web. Okay, and then we literally pay money for hackers, and then we buy the username and passwords, and then we actually run those username and password against the customer's tenant. Okay, so if the password is going through, that means the identity is compromised, right? So those intelligence, we give it back to zero trust. And then now we know that, okay, this user's identity is compromised because we have seen that the same user's identity, a connection is actually coming in from Russia or like, Africa or US, where I have no business and I don't have employees working from these locations, right? So we can actually look into those kind of scenarios. And does this user has a multi-factor authentication enabled? If it is not enabled, then he's a risky user, right? So these are the things, context we check from the identity perspective. From the device perspective, okay, is this device registered in my domain? Is it a Azure AD domain joint, or is it my on-premises Active Directory domain joint? Is it compliant to my organization security policies? Okay, is this device compromised with any kind of threats, known viruses, Trojan, malware, and all those stuff. So we verify all this only if all these things of verification, okay, where the device is registered, it is managed through Intune, yes, they meet all my organization's compliant policies, security policies, and this device is never compromised before. This is what we check from the device perspective, and then we trust this, and then we provide access to limited access or full access. Okay. Now the third scenario is from the application. Is this application known, or is it sanctioned for this particular user? If it is sanctioned, as what user is he trying? Is he accessing as a regular user or as an admin user for this particular application? Okay. All of a sudden, all this 4 or 5 months he was accessing it as a regular user, and now so we see that he has an admin privilege for the same user account, right? So something has changed. Why would all of a sudden he become an admin user for the same username and password, right? So we have the capability to check these kind of scenarios, and then we will challenge them, we will question them, then we will notify immediately to your security team that I see there is a change in this particular user's behavior, right? So we can actually look into these kind of scenarios. Then comes the network. How risky is the network connectivity? Is it a source? Is it coming from Russia? Okay, why this connection is coming from Russia? Is it unusual location, right? So we can actually check all this from the network perspective. And then from the infrastructure perspective, is it privileged? Is the resource configured according to the policies? Am I seeing any kind of unusual behavior, right? We can look into those aspects. And then from the data perspective, is the data is encrypted? Is it sensitive in nature? Where is this data located? So in zero trust, you can actually build these kind of use case scenarios, and anything changes and then anything suspicious like this, zero trust will ensure the device has no access, the user has no access, that there is no application access, right? So that is how you actually modernize your security posture, your security for your organization, right? And this is where you basically prioritize using the focus areas where identity becomes your perimeter, because your network is no longer required, because your users are actually accessing remotely using internet, any device, any location. So you need to ensure you have a strong identity perimeter management, because once identity gets attacked, compromised, there are multiple attacks which hacker can do: credential stuffing, password spray, phishing attacks. You can actually do all this stuff. So you need to have that balance between your security and productivity, right? So with that, let me hand it over to Udesh to show you some fantastic demos on how Microsoft does the zero trust and protects your organization's resources like users, identities, devices, and so on. Udesh, over to you.
Thank you, Kiran. So let me share my desktop. Right. Hope everyone can see my desktop. So we'll proceed with the details. Okay. So I'm not going to do any kind of a presentation, lengthy presentation, because Kiran took you through good details about zero trust. What I have is just a couple of slides, which is again I got from Kiran's presentation just to set up the background for my demo in what I'm going to do. First of all, we'll take like how this cyber security evolved. Earlier, in the early stage of computing, people ask, okay, can we get hacked? What is hacking? Can we get really hacked? So that was their mindset. Slowly, with the evolvement of the cyber attacks and cyber security, it got changed into yes, we can get hacked. So there's a probability. After that, like couple of like 1 or 2 decades ago, it changed into like how we get protected by getting hacked. Like what sort of advanced technology we had to use, what sort of solutions we have to keep in our environment to be protected. But nowadays, this is completely different. As my friend Kuan mentioned correctly, nowadays we have to assume breach. We have to think, okay, our network got hacked, so how we can get protected and how we can get alerted. So what sort of precautions we have to take for visibility as well as the protection components. So this is the nowadays terminologies and this is the nowadays baseline to be protected. So with that, I'm taking you to the next slide, which is like again from Kuyan's presentation. Uh, yeah, so we are going to do a kind of a small webinar series to talk about each and every pillars, components, the security, zero trust security. But today we are going to concentrate only about the identity security. So keeping that in mind, we look at when it comes to the identity part, we are going to how we are going to do the zero trust security. So we are going to mainly look into the multi-factor authentication, user session risk based by using the conditional access policies, which is available in the Azure AD Premium. So these are the components we are going to use in order to do it, and we are going to do the kind of a user and location based policies, application and data sensitivity, and real-time risk analysis. So these are the components I'm going to demonstrate today. And next one is the demo. So Kuyan mentioned a lot of policies, a lot of things that we can do in order to protect our environment. So with that, then we are going to look at the first demo, how we can do the multi-factor with the conditional access policies. I'm not talking about basic multi-factor available with the O365. We are talking about the multi-factor with the conditional access policies. Now, I have configured my environment with two different PCs. One is from Singapore, which I have hosted in Azure, and another one is from Brazil. So this particular user will see how, when you try to access O365 environment from the Singapore, it will prompt for the username and password and it will allow for the access without any issue because it's coming from secure source. So this we are taking as a geolocation as a country, but if you want, you can take it as your company environment as well. Then we'll see when you come to the outside of the environment, outside of Singapore, it will prompt for the username and password, then it will prompt for the multi-factor challenge. Then only this will allow you to access. When the session is coming from outside of your nominated network, it could be your geolocation like country, it could be your office environment. So if the connection is coming from any other location, that will prompt for the multi-factor. So I'm going to take you through the example which I have set here. So I have this environment. This is from Singapore. So I'm going to take this as a one example. What is my IP? Okay, so you can see this is kind of public IP, and if you look at the more details, and this is from actually Singapore. So you will see more details coming in here. This is Microsoft Corporation, country Singapore. So we'll look at what will happen when the user accessing the O365 environment. So I'm going to access the O365 environment, office.com, fine, right, okay. Now I'm going to log in by a username called Alex, which I'm taking as an example user. when he log in from this particular username, okay, I'm going to change it for the password. Then sign in. Oops, 1 second. Okay, so here we go. So without any kind of a multi-factor prompted, it managed to log in. So this is from Singapore. So we'll see the same user. I'm going to log off him, and we'll check the same user from another country, which is from Brazil. So this particular machine I have taken from Brazil. Google.com, and we'll check what is my IP. So this is a separate public IP, and this is actually from Brazil. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to access O365 environment just like my previous example from the same user. Okay, office.com, and I'm logging with Alex. I'm entering the password just like earlier. Now it's prompting for the multi-factor. So I'm getting a code with the kind of a multi-factor challenge. Now I'm entering the code, that's 070162. Okay, here we go. Now only I can access the environment. So this is one example which I wanted to show you how we can secure your environment based on the geographical location. So these kind of policies you can always apply to protect your users and while giving the convenient. So without prompting the multi-factor all the time, when a user is in your office environment or it is if is in the local country, no multi-factor, so he can access without any issue. And same time, if the user is coming from another country, then multi-factor will be prompted. So the next example I'm going to take is session risk policies. Now I'm going to take the same user. Now he logged in from Brazil. So you noted that there was no any issue. So I'm going to log him out from Brazil. Now I'm going to take a Tor browser. Now Tor browser is kind of a risky one. So people should not use Tor browser to get connected to their environment. Now I'm going to use Tor browser. So that is something kind of suspicious. So I'm going to use it and see what will happen when a user is accessing from a Tor browser. Again, I'm connecting from office.com site, same user, same password. Here we go. I'm getting a copy of the username. Same user again, Alex, and I'm entering the password. Sign in. Here we go. Now it says you cannot access this right now because of the policies. Now we'll see. Are we getting any kind of alerts for that? Hope you can see my next screen. So I'm going to assure conditional access thing, and I'm going to assure AD, and I'm going to check the signings. So I believe it should come here now. Anytime. These are the real-time data, but might take a little bit time also, a couple of minutes. We'll see it. It's 10:27. Success. Okay, this got okay, fine. this is interrupted. You can see the same IP, it got interrupted, the session. So if you go with the details, you will see this is happened because of the this one. But we'll see any kind of failure happen. So these are the logs previously from a previous example. It's coming now. Okay. Still in 10:27. So we'll give a couple of minutes. We'll proceed with the rest of the session, and then we'll check this whether this data has been here or not. So I'm going to close it. Then the next thing is we are going to discuss session-based policies. Now, this particular example, there might be a situation the user is accessing from another country, but again, from Singapore is his own country. So when he's accessing SharePoint kind of thing without any issue, he can access without, and he can download and he can work on the data to be productive. At the same time, when he's accessing outside of Singapore, this particular same SharePoint environment, what we have put is he can work on it and he can be productive, but same time he can't download any kind of data. So I'm going to take another PC which I used previously. So let me take the URL first. Right, okay, and my PC is from Singapore, and I'm logging to this SharePoint site again with the same user. Okay, so what I do is like sign in. No multi-factor because I'm getting connected from Singapore. So this is his SharePoint site. So when we go to documents, we have a couple of documents uploaded on this part. I'm trying to download one of the document here. So I'm trying to download this book, select and download and save it. So we managed to download it without any issue. But same user will check what will happen from Brazil. So I'm trying to again log in with the same user. I'm using a normal browser, which is Firefox, not the Tor browser. So I should be able to sign in with multi-factor. I got the code now, and 070162. Give me a second. Sorry. 985269. So I'm connecting to SharePoint site from Brazil. Now let's see the same kind of document. When I try to download, what will happen? So earlier I download the that particular Excel, but here look at this. Access to Microsoft SharePoint is monitored. So this is actually happening with the Cloud App Security with the session control policies. So it alert me this particular session is getting monitored. So I'm going to continue to Microsoft SharePoint Online. When I continue to that particular site, we'll see what is happening. It's loading. Right. Now I'm going to the documents just like previous, no changes at all. We'll see whether I will be able to download that book one. Yes, I'm getting the book.excel sheet. So I select it and I'm trying to, right, okay, selected and I'm trying to download it. Here. It says open with, okay, fine. We'll see what is happening. Session is blocked. So it's just giving the block message. So this is the security we are talking about. It's a kind of a session security. Even though to be productive, you can let him access, but same time no downloads. So that is session-based policies. And same time, these passwords is kind of a headache. You might not be not like to type all these passwords time to time because that is actually irritating. Especially we are asking, like especially IT people are asking to use secure password with lengthy password, username and the password. So we are asking you to put characters, numbers, capitals, symbols. So all these things are kind of a challenge to the user. So what we can do is, instead of that, we can do the password-less authentication. For this example, I'm using again the same user, Alex. I'm connecting as a office.com by using Alex username. And here, instead of typing the password, I'm trying to use the app. Now, can you see I got a kind of approved sign in? So I got a number to my mobile. I'm using the authenticator app. In my authenticator app, I have just select the number and approve it. Then it's asking for my fingerprint. Once I given it here, it's getting signed in. So no more password. So as Kiran mentioned, password-less authentication is the future because no passwords are transferring in this environment. This is the interface that you will get into your mobile. So the number you have to select. Once you select the number, then you can approve it. That's all. It will ask for your fingerprint to verification. So once you give it, then you will get authenticated and you can access it without any issue. So that's how we enforce the security to our users. And same time, what we can do the geo policies with conditional access. So same user, again, we can put the policies where he can access from Singapore only, but not from any other countries. So instead of prompting the multi-factor authentication, we just block the access at all. So that sort of protection we can enforce with the conditional access. Now you might wonder how secure your environment currently. So if you want to evaluate your environment, yes, Microsoft has given two workshops. First one is security workshop plus Azure Sentinel add-on. In this workshop, you will get not only the identity component, you will get the complete visibility, how secure your Office 365 environment, how secure your Microsoft Online environment. This workshop will give you a kind of a good visibility, what is happening there and what sort of data is getting transferred, and is there any kind of risk in your environment. But if you really want to look at the identity workshop, which we just discussed about the identity protection, that's also possible. So these things are free of charge, delivered to our customers. So once you do this identity workshop, you can see what is happening in your environment and how much protected you are. You might think, okay, I have not get hacked, I have not get any kind of incident. That might because you are not getting alerted. Not that is not because you are not getting any kind of attacks, because you are not getting alerted. So first of all, I encourage you to get these kind of workshops done in your environment, then evaluate what is happening in your environment. Once the evaluation is done, then you can see how we can proactively engage and implement security to make sure the environment is secured. And after doing the implementing the security also, again you can run this kind of in workshops and check are we secured now. So that's from Microsoft side, and that's how zero trust work in the identity. So that's all from my side. Like if you have any kind of questions, you can ask. Kiran, like we are open for the questions, right? Any kind of a question you can ask.
Yes, absolutely, Udesh. Yeah.
Okay, so Kiran, I think we have already got a couple of questions. So I will take one by one. Do we need EMS license to implement zero trust identity? That's the first question. Kiran, you want to answer or?
Yes, Udesh. I'll take the first one, then rest you can take it. I think the team has also answered a few of the questions on chat and published it, so the people can actually read it. But to answer this question, yes, you need EMS licenses, especially you need Azure AD Premium Plan 1 and CASB solution. These are the two main components we use in order to build a zero trust model for an organization. Okay, so EMS definitely is one of the key license you need for zero trust.
Right. So the next question is, what is the type of OSI license that provides such policies to limit multi-factor based on geolocation? So as Kiran mentioned, that is not OSI license, that is the EMS license. So not only EMS, like if you have to have minimum AD premium, because AD premium license is built into EMS. It's a part of EMS license. So you have to go with either AD premium plus MCAS, or else you have to go with the EMS licenses. Uh, so we have got another question, and Siddharth already answered to that. If we have multiple conditional access policies set for the same user account, which policy take priority?
Yeah,
So
as you can see it, right?
yeah,
It's not about policy executing one by one. It's about holistically looking at where is the risk. It's a risk-based model, right? So uh, it actually recognizes the risk, whether the risk is based on device or user or a privileged account, not privileged account, from where they're accessing, from which location, and all those stuff, and then it takes the necessary action. So there is nothing called like first policy, second policy, third policy. It's all about detecting the risk and then taking the necessary actions.
right. So we have got another question. Can we apply conditional access if a request coming from Linux-based environment? So that has already answered. But in this one, I want to add one more thing. Like, if people might use Linux-based environment with kind of a legacy application as well to get connected to the email. In that case, if that legacy application are not supporting for multi-factor, there's a risk involved. So we always highly recommend to use to block all these legacy applications getting connected to kind of a OT65 environment. Why we are saying that is, legacy applications are not aware about multi-factor most of the time. In that case, multi-factor might be get kind of exceptions, because if the username and password is correct, it will allow to get in that case, what we do as a precaution, we always highly recommend to block all the legacy application connection to the OT65 environment. Kiran, you want to add anything there, or are we good?
Yeah, we are good, Udesh. You have actually covered everything. Yeah.
Okay, the last question. Yeah, are we sharing the recording? Yes, we will be sharing the recording with all the attendees today. And the next one is Microsoft is focusing only IDAM or total zero trust transition using client authentication? Kiran, you want to take that question?
Um, No, today's session was on identity, so we spoke a lot about identity and access management. But as a zero trust, Microsoft has an end-to-end focus, not just on IDAM, but IDAM, identity and access management holds a very key component here. I mean, everything is revolved around identity, and it is one of the key components. So we have a very strong, robust identity and access management solutions. But then, just to answer this question, we are focusing end to end, right from users, identities, devices, network, data, everything end to end.
Yes, Kiran. So you correctly mentioned, just adding a small addition for that. As we mentioned in the beginning of the session, we have already planned kind of a series of webinar. Almost every fortnight, we will be sending you the invitation, which will be covering all these aspects. So today focus is only on the identity and access management IDAM solution, but we are talking about the device endpoint, all these things coming weeks. So we will be sharing you the invitation with you, so you can get connected and you can get the complete idea about how Microsoft Zero Trust security works in all these aspects. So with that, we don't have any other questions. So kindly let us know if you have any other questions. Floor is open for you. Any more questions? Okay, so currently we are not getting any kind of a further questions. Like if you have any kind of a question, kindly contact us. So you know all the contact details from Zillion point of view. Please keep in touch if you need more kind of information, more kind of details, how to do all this workshop and how securely we can implement these solutions in your environment. Yeah, we are always ready to have a kind of detailed discussion in person. So let us know if you're interested in all these kind of things, and we can come and meet you and always help you to implement all these secure solutions. Since we are Microsoft fast track partner, we are capable and we have competent people to do all this deployment. With that note, I think we can wind up the session for today, and we are actually looking forward to meet all of you in our next coming sessions as well. Thank you very much for all the participants for attending today, and big thanks for all our presenters as well. Thank you very much.